The real estate market here in Surrey, BC is, well, interesting to say the least. We're just at the start of February and the first month of the year was a little bit surprising, to be honest. It got off to a busier start than I think a lot of people, including myself, thought that it was going to. Because generally January is a pretty slow month and things start to pick up as we head into the spring. But because of that, there's a lot of people who are holding off on either buying or selling until we get closer to March or April. However, it's kind of feeling like we're gonna have somewhat of an early spring market. But before I give any more anecdotes, let's dive into the data. All right, so first of all, we're gonna take a quick dive into the Fraser Valley housing market stats for January of 2024, which is the end of the month. So signs of stability in the Fraser Valley housing market. The Fraser Valley real estate market showed signs of recovery in January as home sales rose after 6 consecutive months of decline and new listings more than doubled. Now this is pretty common heading into December. Listings typically decline. We hit just under 4,000 here. And as I say in almost every video, we need to be somewhere in the 6,000 to 6,500 range in order to have any sort of a balanced or potentially buyer's market. And we're not quite there. So the Fraser Valley Real Estate Board recorded 938 transactions on the MLS in January, a 12% increase over December and below the 10-year average for sales in the region. At 2,368 new listings, it increased 151% in January, rebounding strongly from the season lull seen in December. Nothing surprising here. This is the largest month-over-month percentage increase in new listings in 5 years now. That is something to note. However, again, we are still low in terms of the number of listings on the market. So quickly coming down to the bottom here for the Fraser Valley itself, we can see a quick summary, the snapshot here. So detached homes, benchmark price, 1.466 million, 825,000 for townhomes, and 539,000 for apartments year over year. Again, this is for the entire market, not specifically Surrey. We are up 8.6%, 6.9%, and 6.5%. with the sales ratios looking pretty good across the board. Detached being balanced, the other two being relatively strong sellers markets. Now, what we're going to look into now specifically is Surrey itself and how this is going to compare against the Fraser Valley. Moving on, we can see that there's actually a slight decline in prices month over month when we're looking at the benchmark prices for the city of Surrey combined. However, what I want you to keep in mind is that benchmark prices are slightly delayed. So generally, what we're seeing is about a month or two behind, and how I can show you that really quickly is if we can see prices declining here. If we look at median or average, we can actually see a slight uptick month over month, and the activity I'm seeing in the market is definitely indicating that. Now, again, it's not any sort of a massive influx or change in prices, but the activity is definitely higher, and we definitely didn't see a decline in prices, again, looking at it from both the median and the average price points. It looks like condos actually did for the city of Surrey, but townhomes and condos did not. So as we can see across Surrey itself, just over 1.6 for detached, just over 538,000 for apartments, and 872 for townhomes. Moving on to the central Surrey area, so Bear Creek, Fleetwood, and some of the other communities around that area, we can see it is below the benchmark prices across Surrey at 1.509, apartments at 553, and townhomes at 800, almost 24,000. Then moving into Cloverdale, even slightly lower, so detached down at 1.461, apartments at 564,000, and townhomes at just under 844,000. Again, these are all benchmark prices. If we were to look at the median, we can see upticks at least in the apartment and detached markets. And then average, we can see across the board upticks in price. But it's only a 1 month thing. We're just starting to see this happen. We have to see 3 consecutive months for it to actually be a trend. However, we're definitely headed in that direction. Now, moving on to North Surrey. So this is gonna be Whalley and surrounding areas. Detached prices at 1.449 basically. Apartments at 483,000, lower than the rest. And townhomes also lower at 738,000. And then lastly, we have South Surrey and White Rock. This is doing the brunt of the work at the highest price points at over 1.9 million. apartments at 627,000 and townhomes creeping up on $1 million at 953,600. Now, what I want to go back to and view now is, as we already kind of briefly saw, is the number of sales, but we're just going to look at all property types for that. Surrey made up 435 of those 928 sales in the Fraser Valley, so it was a good percentage, and we can see an uptick from the previous month. But what we actually want to see is new listings. As we can see here, there was a significant increase from December, but if we look back, this happens every single year. So this is no surprise. December, lots of listings are expiring, coming off the market, or they're just pulling it off to bring it back in the new year or waiting until the spring. But active listings is probably the most important thing we want to look at. Now, we actually saw a decrease in the month over month active listings, which is a little bit shocking here, to be honest with you. I would have expected this to be going up, but it appears that there was enough sales activity to actually drive it down, which is driving the more competition and to some extent pushing prices in an upwards direction. As I said, we're not quite seeing any sort of massive increase in prices or anything like that. However, there's definitely a lot less negotiation room and power as there was, but there's definitely a lot less negotiation room and power than there was just a few months ago, especially in November, which seemed to be the slowest month of last year. Now, looking at the sales to actives ratio, so keep in mind that for a balanced market, you're going to be between 12 and 20%. Anything over 20 is a seller's market, and anything below 12 is a buyer's market. If we look at it across all property types, we can see that they are all quite high aside from detached. Detached homes is in a balanced market, but apartments and townhomes are both in sellers markets based on this data. Now, lastly, I want to just take a quick look at the days on market for each property type. So looking at the median, we can see detached homes at 37, apartments at 35, and townhomes at 23, meaning that they're moving pretty quick in comparison. Now, if we look at the average, that'll push those up a bit more. However, I think median is a better number here because there will be those listings that have been on the market for 100, 150, 200, 250 days, and that's just going to pull the average up, whereas the median, I think, is a better representation. So to summarize, the market is shaping up along the lines of what I expected, just moving a bit more quickly than I anticipated. As I mentioned in previous videos and my predictions, that I believe there would be higher levels of competition, which we are seeing, but we're not seeing any crazy jumps in prices. Now, at the ground level, from both myself showing properties, talking to others, inquiring on properties, we are starting to see multiple offers on quite a few different listings. Now, for the most part, we're not quite seeing subject free offers yet. There are a few floating around out there. However, it doesn't seem to be normal practice, at least at this point in time. And in regards to these multiple offer situations, as long as the property isn't significantly underpriced with an offer date and they're trying to stir up a bidding war, it's not selling way over the asking price. It's ending up around what I would deem market value, maybe slightly higher in some cases. But I've already personally been in 3 or 4 different situations this year where there was 7 or 8 offers, and several other ones where it was just 2 or 3. Now, in regards to offer dates, I'm starting to see this come back a little bit more. It's definitely not the most common practice at this point in time. However, I think in a few weeks, maybe even by the middle of this month, that's probably what's going to start happening more and more. And in terms of where I'm seeing the most activity, specifically in Surrey, it's generally for condos that are under the 600, 650 range, townhomes under 850 to 900, and then detached homes in the 1.2 to 1.5 range, and especially those with basement suites. And I think this primarily comes down to affordability, that people are still able to purchase these properties at these price points, but once you start getting to over $1 million, for instance, with townhomes, there's not quite as much activity. And at this point in time, it does feel like every single day, every single week, we are seeing more activity in the market, more buyers coming off the sidelines. With the Bank of Canada's announcement of their latest rate hold, it's giving more confidence, and people are still expecting rate cuts to be coming sometime in the next couple of months here. Now, what does this mean for you? Well, of course, as always, it depends on your situation. I think it's still a great time for upsizers in order to get into that next property type, because of the fact that the gap is still a lot smaller if you can afford to make that jump than it will be when things pick up. So my suggestion is, if this is something that you're looking to do, going from a condo to a townhome or a townhome to a detached, I would get on top of that sooner rather than later. Now, if you're somebody who's looking to downsize or make a lateral move, I don't necessarily think that this is the best time for you. Lateral move may not matter. It really depends on what you're in or which market you're traveling to. But as a downsizer, I think you should definitely be holding off, and that things will probably get better for you, because as a downsizer, you want to sell as close to the top of the market as possible, because the market extends out and you're going to create a larger gap. And then when it shrinks, again, it shrinks that gap between the home prices. And that's why it is typically better to upsize in a down market and to downsize in an up market. But of course, as always, it all depends on your unique situation. There's so many other factors than just what's going on in the market that are going to dictate that. So if you want to have a further conversation to see what the best solution is for you, or just look at your options, you can schedule a call with me by scrolling down and clicking the first link in the description and booking a time with me that works best for you. And so while it's still early in the year, it is looking like it's shaping up to be quite a bit busier than last year. Where things are gonna end up, not quite sure. However, it's looking a lot more positive. But I'd love to hear your thoughts. Are we still headed for this unavoidable crash that just hasn't quite happened in the market yet? Or are we headed back in our upward trajectory like we do in most years? Let me know down in the comments. If you did get any value from this video, all I ask is that you hit the thumbs up button so that the algorithm will push it out to more amazing people just like yourself who want to learn more about real estate in Surrey. And if you're interested in seeing more videos just like this one, as well as community tours across Surrey, Langley, and the rest of the Lower Mainland, then I suggest you consider subscribing to our channel. Before you get out of here, make sure you check out another video on our channel, and we'll see you in the next one.